today, I thought I'd continue on with a theme which we've been exploring for the past weeks here at the Saturday class. Yeah. So a while ago, we were celebrating a big Buddhist festival day. A while ago, we were celebrating Sangha Day. Sangha Day is where we celebrate the Buddhist community. Yeah, it's a day of community, especially those people who've committed themselves to the Buddhist path, and especially those people who are further along on the path than we are. Yeah, there's a special day for community in Buddhism. That's kind of nice, isn't it? So we did that. And from then onwards, we've looked at friendship. Last week, Tarapalita gave an amazing talk about friendship and the role of friendship in the spiritual life. And we also looked at a teaching called the individual and the spiritual community. Yeah, how to become an individual, how to well, if you sort of the main core of that teaching is that if you actually do want to be part of a genuinely spiritual community, your first job is to become an individual. That's the vision, as it were, of a Buddhist community. Is that we're not just sort of all here because we like each other. We mostly do, but it's sort of that's not the main reason why we're here. It's sort of a nice side effect if that happens. Sometimes we don't like each other, and that's okay. But what brings us together is that we're working on ourselves, that we're transforming our own consciousness. Yeah, that we've committed to higher ideals. Yeah, to the ideal of growth. So today, I kind of want to dwell a little bit more about that, because last time when I spoke, I talked mostly about what it meant to become an individual, talking about the fact that all we do here, mindfulness, metta, is sort of set up to do that. Yeah, becoming a true individual isn't something we can sort of do aside of everything else we do here. It is a sort of result of becoming more and more aware of ourselves and becoming more and more emotionally positive. And just for you to get a flavor of what that means to become a true individual, I've brought a little quote just to summarize that, so that I don't need to go into that any further, from Sangharakshita, the founder of our order. And I think he summarizes it quite beautifully. He says, by individuals, we mean people who are truly human beings. That is to say, self-conscious in the sense of being self-aware, who are emotionally positive, whose energies flow freely and spontaneously, who accept responsibility for themselves, who accept responsibility for their own life, for their own growth, their own individual development, and to act accordingly, because they see such growth, such development being the most important thing in life for each and every human being, and who therefore commit themselves wholeheartedly to the process of that individual development. It's a bit of a long quote, so I won't read it again, unfortunately, but it's just for you to give you a flavor what we've been looking at. Yeah, that's what we've been looking at. So if those people come together, we form community. So I want to dwell a bit more on this whole subject of community, because it's a subject that is quite dear to my heart. I've been recently reflecting about the fact that, I came to the Buddhist center here. I came to this one, actually. This was the first Buddhist center I ever came to. Now I'm here, 12 years later. But when I came here first, I was definitely not looking for community. I was one of those people who, had friends, I had family, I had friends. Trust me, I had friends. But I was looking, I guess, for philosophy. I was looking for truth. I was looking for maybe even meditation, even though, as I always famously say, I always found meditation really boring at the beginning. Didn't know how to do it. But just looking back over the past 12 years of what I've been given, what I've actually received, I can truly say I have received community. I think that's the biggest thing that I have that I've been given through the practice of Buddhism. Yeah, it's sort of, for me, that's the biggest gift in a way that has emerged from practicing Buddhism. Is a deep friendship and a knowledge of the different relationships I'm in, and also a gift of relationships that I've never known before. Yeah, so through working on myself, working on my mind, working through metta and meditation and mindfulness on myself, I've been able to now in a whole network of relationships which I never thought existed still. All of a sudden I've got a whole network of friends. I've got a network of teachers, even. I've got a network of people, sort of order brothers and sisters. It's new types of relationships have opened up for myself in life, and my existing relationships to my parents, to other friends, have deepened through that. So I just feel intensely grateful for those relationships, and which is why I kind of want to. My talk is a bit of a celebration of all that. Yeah, it's a bit of a celebration of the relationships that a spiritual community can bring about. So it's really transformed and deepened those relationships. Not always immediately. Sometimes it took some time on my end to get there. But I think it's every now and again, it's good to look at what Buddhist practice is actually trying to get at. Yeah, we're usually very concerned about the right technique, the right kind of, how do I do mindfulness really? What does it really mean? How do I activate my metta? When actually I'm coming more and more to the realization that Buddhist practice is about other people. Yeah, is about others. Is about how we are with others in the world. Yeah, and that is because one of the core Buddhist teachings and realizations is that of, the fact that ourselves aren't so fixed and separated as we usually think they are. Yeah. Sometimes there's this word interconnectedness floating around the internet in connection with Buddhism. It's not quite the best word, actually. It's not quite the best word to describe what we mean by that. It's more saying, well, the Buddha said that we are all not so different and so static and so fixed as we think we are. There's more to us than, what we currently experience. So this is why I think looking at other people and relationships tells us a lot about what meditation is for example, what ethics are for, what metta is actually for. So to go into that, I would like to introduce you to a very good. I'm not very good with adjectives. Gut. With very good teaching from the Buddha. Fill in the gap. I mean, come on, English is difficult. With a very inspiring and mind-blowing, I don't know. I'm not very good at marketing. Teaching by the Buddha called the Sigalovada Sutta. Yeah. So in this sutta, sutta is a teaching. In this teaching, the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, he was kind of wandering around and he encountered a Brahmin. So a Brahmin is not a Buddhist. They follow Hinduism. And he sees this Brahmin ritually worshipping and revering the 6 directions of space. Yeah, so the north, south, east, west, up and down. Yeah, so he's sort of making offerings to the gods and goddesses in all those 6 directions. And the Buddha inquires and says, "Well, what are you doing there?" He replies, "Well, I'm worshipping the 6 directions because my father, on his deathbed, he said to me, please continue my work, continue worshipping the 6 directions, and protection and security and safety will be ensured." Yeah. And then the Buddha says, as he famously does, he's a bit of a sometimes a party pooper to people. He's like, well, that's not how you do it. That's not how you really worship the 6 directions. To really worship the 6 directions, so there's a bit of an allegory here. He says, well, first of all, he says, well, first the thing you need to do is you need to leave the 14 bad things behind, and then the 6 directions will be covered. So the 6 directions he reveals later on are actually the 6 main relationships we have in our life. Yeah. So that's the real meaning of the 6 directions. It's not literally making offerings to the 6 directions, but it's the 6 main relationships that we're in. And he says that the East is our parents, the South is the teachers, the West is the spouse, the partner, the North are the friends and companions, below us are people who work for us, and above us are the ascetics or holy men. Yeah, as they existed at the time. Yeah, so at the time in India, you had people of all sorts of different spiritual traditions who were wandering for and looking for truth. Yeah, looking for a meaning. What I find interesting is that it's quite interesting. He goes into, before he actually gets to those 6 directions, he spends a lot of time talking about ethics. So ethics in Buddhism, means, first of all, you need to really stop doing anything stupid. Be kind to people, be generous, sort of try to lead a simple life, and speak the truth and try not to get intoxicated. So these are sort of the basic 5 precepts of Buddhism. He says, okay, so these are the grounds. You need to cover that ground first. First work on yourself, really establish a lovely behavior towards other people, yeah, and yourself, obviously, yeah. Establish a kind of, ethics in Buddhism. Sometimes if we grow up with a kind of, very European or sort of monotheistic background, we think of ethics as like these sort of strict rules that we need to adhere just to sort of be part of a group or something. And Buddhism, I think, the more I come to think of it, is ethics just means a behavior, whatever that might look like, that is just really pleasing, yeah? That just really, when you are with people where you can feel like people start to relax around you, people start to sort of, become at ease. There's a sort of nice flow of communication happening. You show yourself, the other person can open up as well. You're being kind, you're being generous. The Buddha doesn't quite tell you how to do all these things, but he says, the effects of that are, you are in better mental states, and this is how you can judge whether you've been ethical or not in Buddhism. It's not so much to do with the fact of, have you checked the list? It's more like, have you been able to behave in a way that, it's just very easy for people to be around, yeah? Are you sort of able to let go of your own self a little bit more? Just, are you able to let go of the preoccupation with your own self a bit more? And then, I'm not going to talk about it too long, but I found it quite funny. After that, he says, okay, so the next thing you need to let go of are the 6 drains on wealth. So 6 things which drain your wealth, which is interesting. Talking about relationships and wealth here. So the first one is consuming beer, wine, and liquor. It's and the first thing he says, the first drawback of drinking is immediate loss of wealth. So the Buddha is quite pragmatic here. The second one is roaming the streets at night. It's quite interesting because you can get a sense of the sort of traditional society he was in. He says, well, the 6 drawbacks of roaming the street at night are yourself, your partners and children, and your property are all left unguarded. You're suspected of bad deeds. Untrue rumors spread about you. You're at the forefront of many things that entail suffering. So, stop drinking and roaming the streets at night if you want to get on with your parents and friends. Well, the third one is frequenting festivals. So sorry, Buddhism is like, and he says, I found that very funny. These are the 6 drawbacks of frequenting festivals. You're always thinking, where's the dancing? Where's the singing? Where's the music? Where are the stories? Where's the applause? Where are the kettle drums? So these are the 6 drawbacks of frequenting festivals. Well, then the 5th one is gambling. Hopefully obvious. And then, you know, the what's it? 5th one is bad friends. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. And then the 6th one is laziness, which I also found quite interesting, because it's like procrastination isn't a new thing, apparently. It's 2,500 years old, apparently. So these are the 6 drawbacks of habitual laziness. You don't get your work done because you think it's too cold, it's too hot, it's too late, it's too early, I'm too hungry, I'm too full. By dwelling on so many excuses for not working, you don't make any more money, and the money you already have runs out. Which is very Berlin, isn't it? Yeah, we can all recognize ourselves in this text. So he says, okay, you know, don't do that. You know, if you want the 6 directions to be guarded, you know, if you actually want to be able to engage in an ease of communication, and an ease of relationship with, you know, your partners, your parents, your friends, and so on. You know, you do need to take responsibility for yourself, like Sangharakshita said in that first quote. Yeah, become an individual, someone who is actively taking responsibility for their own actions and their own life. Interestingly, he doesn't mention that in the beginning, but he then adds in a whole section on fake friends and good-hearted friends, and how to distinguish them. So he keeps coming back to friendship, interestingly. I'll say a little bit more about that later. So he then comes on to say, well, if there's all these relationships we have, and he also enlists for every relationship, he sort of enlists duties that we have towards those people. I'm not going to go into that. Most of these things are actually fairly, you know, down-to-earth teachings. They're quite sort of, you know, it's just sort of treat people kindly, treat people with respect. That's kind of the main gist of the whole teaching, and people will treat you kindly and with respect back as well. What I do want to go into is 3 of those relationships. Yeah. So parents, I'll leave out. I mean, I get on well with my parents. It's not always easy, but there we go. But I had a relationship with parents before joining Buddhism. I do want to say something about teachers, about friends, and about ascetics, yeah, and what that could mean for us today. Because I think those 3 relationships are the ones that I've particularly gained, and that I'm still sort of trying to figure out, you know, what they mean for my life, because they haven't. I don't really had a big experience of those before I came, except for the friends, of course, before I came to Buddhism. First thing is teachers, actually. Now, it's not like, you know, there's, you know, we sort of got teachers running around here in the Buddhist Center who are sort of all teachery, I hope not, at least. It's more that through, you know, coming in contact with the Buddhist Center, and then, you know, more and more seeing that this is a path for me, seeing that it is something that I would like to do more and more in my life, that it is something that I want to put at the heart of my life, when I was then deciding that I want to get ordained. Ordination in our context means exactly that we are people who've decided that Buddhism is the most important thing in our life. This is what we want to place at the heart of our life. when you do that, when you start to train for ordination, obviously you start to sort of reach out to order members who are more experienced than you are. Yeah, people who know, how it is because they've been living this life for a long time. So those people wouldn't consider themselves my teachers, which is interesting. But the more I'm thinking of them, the more I really realize that, I have actually gained spiritual teachers. I obviously had teachers at school, and I have teachers in, when I, because I used to play instruments and made music, so you've got teachers there, you've got teachers in sports. But I didn't have a relationship as a teacher with those people usually, or it was a very formalized relationship. One of the things that I realized was just that a real, genuine sort of teacher relationship is when you come in contact with someone who's more experienced than you are, and that relationship is based on a sort of mutual friendship, on a mutual interest and kindness. So, I came to the Buddhist center here when I was 19. I asked for ordination when I was 21. So I was sort of quite young and naive and idealistic and pushy. And I've been told that I've been quite rude as well at times. Working on that. But the person that I then eventually asked to ordain me is Dharma Priya. He's here. He's part of the center team here. And at the time, he was 70-something, 71, I think. So there was this huge age gap between us, right? There was this huge age gap. And I just remember thinking, how is this going to work? How will he be able to sort of, help me in my spiritual journey? Will I be able to open up towards him? Will I be able to, really, sort of have that kind of relationship with him? The more when we met every week, he made a point of, you have to meet up with me every week. Over the course of a year, I felt like, gosh, this old man is interested in me, has a lot to say about life in general, and also about Buddhism. And he just sort of reacts with this like intense care and kindness towards me whenever I open up about my struggles. Yeah, like a real friendship sort of emerged here. And I thought, gosh, that's quite something. I've never had that experience in my life before, that I had this kind of intense relationship with someone who just genuinely wanted to sort of help. He's a normal person as well, so he has his quirks, and, we had our misunderstandings as well, and our sort of, occasional sort of fight as well, because we're both very strong-headed individuals. But underneath all that, was just this like intense, like he just really wanted me to be well. And he wanted me to succeed. So eventually when he ordained me, he also gave me my Buddhist name, Dharmasara. And I just remember that moment being like, that was as if sort of this whole kindness of his was sort of manifested in this sort of act of saying, yeah, I believe that you are ready now, and I believe that you can do this now, and off you go. So I've gained a relationship there, which is one of, not just help, but also then he sort of said, well, now it's your turn. Now I'm here as a friend, but I'm not going to tell you what to do anymore. And that is a great gift if someone can actually leave you alone and let you get on with things. Sometimes you have a bit of a helper complex and just want to keep sort of helping people. But to have someone who can see when it's appropriate to just sort of, let the young guy run, as it were. And he still is a good friend of mine. There's two other friends that I have, Padmavajra and Maitreya Bandhu. They're both from England, who've just placed a lot of faith and trust in me. Yeah, who've just sort of been really able to look out for me and sort of excuse a lot of idealism and excuse a lot of naivety. And I still don't know how to describe that feeling, but it's a very new experience for me. but again and again, they sometimes ask me to do something. So Maitreya Bandhu sometimes asks me to do something. So a while ago, I had to give a little talk in an online thing. I mean, I just sort of did it because he was my friend. But afterwards, I received quite a lot of messages from those people who are sort of my teachers, but also other people who are experienced, sort of saying, well done, great, you did a really good job there. It's just such a weird feeling to be sort of acknowledged by people you look up to, yeah? Such a weird sort of, it's not like, oh, they finally see me or something. It's this sort of, I think, how I imagine traditional societies to be like a little bit more, where you just feel like, okay, there's this sort of, you are amongst people who are more experienced than you, and therefore can say, oh, well done, you did well here. I've got experience and you're learning, but I can see that you're growing, and I appreciate that you're growing, and I appreciate that you're taking on my work, as it were. So I don't know what you do with that information, but it's just, I think it's part of, maybe to bring it back to Buddhist practice, it's part of what metta and what community looks like exemplified, yeah? I think when we are, I think the main job of, in any profession, in any kind of field of work, is to sort of find people who can take on that work and to encourage them and to sort of really, give them meaning and metta and blessings, as we call them, which is just that. Yeah, the Buddhist sense of blessings is actually love, is metta. Yeah, to really love people and encourage them to grow, because we want them to become individuals themselves. Yeah, this is the main job of a community, is to make sure that people within it have everything they need to become individuals themselves. Yeah, to grow and to practice. Going on, so this is sort of my reflections on what it means to have a teacher or have teachers. I do want to say a little bit about friendship, even though we've heard quite a lot about friends. Now, I had, I'm not going to repeat the joke, I had friends before, but the sort of the type of friendship which I've been able to receive and give has just been, quite remarkable. It's a sort of, our ideal of friendship is very high in Buddhism. It's almost too high. Sort of too high that that it's sort of bound for disappointment. But I think that's true for any friendship. I think friendship means disappointment. I think it's sort of built in the system. If you actually want to be a friend, you need to allow yourself to be really disappointed in the friend. Yeah, I think that's what friendship means. So there's one friend in particular. Well, I want to talk about. Sorry, which I think most of you know because I keep talking about him. And he's a good friend of mine who I got ordained with. So when we get ordained, we most of us are encouraged to go on a long retreat. So in my case, this was a 4-month long retreat in Spain. And the conditions in this case, I love the place, but it's just the first time you get there, you sort of swallow and you think, okay, 4 months here. Someone in our group said, well, it's not going to get a 4-star review at TripAdvisor. It's sort of slightly better than camping, yeah. And you're sort of in this small hut, always 2 of you. So I was there with Kshantikara. People know him. I've known him before. He's sort of my age as well. And we were both, sort of mid-20s when we got ordained. We were kind of young ones on the course. Very idealistic, very kind of sort of bright, I guess. And, for most of this time, there was just this like love between us. Yeah, there was just sort of love which wasn't just based on likes and dislikes. Yeah, I think this is the main point in Buddhism, is that friendship shouldn't just be based on common likes and dislikes. It's sort of spiritual friendship, Buddhist friendship comes about of a shared ideal, a shared path, a shared practice, which sort of weirdly colors everything. So, it's a very tight space that we were in, that we shared those 4 months in. We got into fights as well. We got into, I just keep, he keeps being disappointed in me, I keep being disappointed in him. But again and again, you just come back and you just say, okay, no, I will commit to this. Yeah, I know that there's more going on here. The more I think about it, the more I think that friendship means commitment. If you do want to have a good friendship, you need to be disappointed and commit to coming back. Unless it's obviously toxic. Caveat, just don't commit to anyone, please. Choose your friends well. But if you have a generally good feeling about them, then, be disappointed and come back. We were lucky enough to sort of come back to this place 4 years later to share again a hut for 3 months this time. We were part of the team, so we were helping people get ordained there in this place. So now we also had to work together. And if you really want to be disappointed in someone, then you work with them. So I just remember this one time where we were asked to build a shrine, build a sort of something like this, but sort of makeshift in a tent kind of thing. And I just remember being so annoyed at him. It was like, I don't know, everything that I wanted to do, he didn't do, and everything I didn't want him to do, he did do. It was like, you sort of feel like you're sort of in this paralysis all of a sudden, because you just get more and more annoyed, and you think, can you just stop existing for a moment? And but I remember in that moment, all I had to do, it sounds easy, but I remember deciding in that moment that what I had to do was to just completely surrender. And that was all I could do, because I was so annoyed. I was like, steam coming from my ears, sort of my fist twitching. I'm not violent, don't worry. I remember then all of a sudden this flow appeared, because I think he picked up on that as well, and he entered that same state. And at the end of the day, we were just sort of saying, oh, that turned really beautifully, and we sort of were able to build this amazing shrine. It was actually like a work of art. I mean, not to boast ourselves, but it was really good. It was it was good. So it's just. Because we've both committed to something, we had to come back. Because we had our practice of metta, of mindfulness, we were able to let go more, and we were able to let go of self a bit more. Self in Buddhism isn't a thing, it's a process. We're sort of constantly selfing, building up a sort of self and trying to protect it around us. Because I knew he loved me and I loved him, I could let go into that, Second story is that towards the end of that 3-month period, we had a meeting, and we talked about what we would say, and he didn't do what I told him to do, and I got really annoyed with him. We were sort of walking back to our hut, and I remember just sort of being like, okay, so what happened? What was that about? Weird. Why didn't you sort of do what we agreed to say and all that? And he just sort of, I remember him backing off and becoming more and more quiet. He's English, by the way. Which is, I'm learning a lot, because where I come from, or my family, is the approach is head first through the door, it's so I remember sitting him down and being so we need to talk about this, and this is a problem, and you're being annoying. And it's you tell me now what you're feeling, please. And I remember him just being I don't know what you're pushed against the wall. And again, I had to completely, because I unfortunately identify with that a lot. I think that's the best way to talk about problems, is to just be hello. I really think that's the best way, and I identify a lot. But with him, I just could not get through at all. It was impossible. So again, we had to build, like, he then sort of noticed that his approach wasn't working with me either, because I was getting running at him more and more. But it's sort of, I then had to be like, okay, different culture. And then I then backed off and went quiet, and then he started talking, and I was like, oh, okay. And then finally we managed to sort of reach something, and all of a sudden it flowed. And there was this sort of sense of, oh yeah, we'll just keep coming back. Like there was just this, in that moment we knew we would just always come back, and that would be fine, yeah. It's sort of the closest I've felt to, the sort of word brotherhood, whatever that might mean, yeah. I think it's a word which we sort of use exponentially among men, at least, but usually it doesn't mean much. In this case, I felt like, no, you're not just a friend. It does feel more like there's a relationship, like a relation there, almost like a sibling. I can't quite explain that, but it's a sort of siblinghood through values or something, yeah? Because I really feel like I can't just drop him now. Like it's impossible to do. Okay, and then lastly, I'd like to just very briefly mention what the Buddha might have meant with aesthetics or holy men at the time. I think that category is a bit more difficult for us to translate into day-to-day life, because there's not that many homeless wanderers. Well, there's a few homeless people, but but they are not. They might not be practicing. Sorry, this is weird. Anyway, delete that. There's not that many holy people. What I think that means, okay, I'm just translating now. What I think that means is that we do sort of acknowledge that people are more experienced than us. Yeah, that we do sort of treat people who are more experienced in whatever field with sort of due respect. In my case, I think for me, what that means is to protect, as it were, that quarter, is to learn to look up and to revere. Yeah. So for me, for example, that is the Buddha. Yeah. The Buddha is one of those people that more and more through my practice, I have sort of entered into what I might call a relationship with. It's not like, sometimes Christians say they have a relationship with God or something, and you sort of speak to him. It's not quite the same in Buddhism. The Buddha was a human being 2,500 years ago who then gained enlightenment, which is a sort of different category now. He sort of transcended humanhood. He's sort of transcended. He's not a normal person, but he's also not a god. He's sort of our teacher, our sort of archetypal teacher, you could say. The Buddha himself, when he got enlightened, he sort of asked himself the question, well, now that I've reached this supreme state, who do I revere? Because being without reverence means to suffer. So even the Buddha acknowledged that reverence, looking up, is something essential just for human happiness. Yeah. Obviously, in our day-to-day life, we've become very suspicious of looking up to people. We've become very suspicious, especially of people who claim to be holy, because again, we've been duly humbled by that. But I think what that means is to sort of have this, it doesn't have to be a kind of blind faith. I don't think that's what the Buddha means. It doesn't mean to sort of put yourself down. It's more an opening up, I think. It's more a sort of receptive approach. It's more something where you think, well, I mean, here we all are on this earth. What does that mean? And there's so much more to learn. Yeah, there's so much more to learn. So let's look for that. Let's look out for, whoever might be able to teach us. It doesn't mean to sort of, put ourselves down, as I said. It's not so when I kind of think of the Buddha, I don't feel sort of small and sinful or whatever. I feel greater. Yeah, I feel like, okay, I'm glad there was someone all this time ago who had something to say, something of value. And I have a similar feeling, albeit to a different degree, to the Buddhist masters of the past, our own founder, like Sangharakshita, just people who've set up all these conditions through their wisdom and insight that, that's why we're here today. That's why we can follow those teachings. That's why we are able to follow these practices. And I think that is worthy of reverence. So just to finish up, a Buddhist community, a spiritual community, is an ideal. Yeah, it's an ideal situation. It is not something that just exists. Yeah, it's not something that is just here. So I can't tell you, join our spiritual community, because in a way there is none. Yeah, there's nothing to join, as it were. The ideal of community in Buddhism is an ideal, and I think ideals are meant to sort of hover above everything. I think that's sometimes where the problem comes from, is that we think ideals should manifest like literally where we are right now. An ideal is supposed to hover above us. An ideal is supposed to be sort of never reached in this time and place. Yeah. So if we're lucky, through our practice, we'll be able to get a glimpse of something shining through. We'll be able to get a glimpse of what spiritual community, what spiritual friendship might mean, shimmer through. And I think that's a good attitude, not to get too disappointed too quickly as well. So the ideal of the spiritual community is people who just genuinely work on themselves through meditation, through ethics, and who enter into genuine relationships with each other on the basis of their own commitment. This is basically what we're trying to do here in the center. Well, sometimes I don't quite like to say that, because sometimes it sounds as though we're trying to make the center like one big spiritual community. It's more the center is trying to be an opportunity for spiritual communities to happen, like little pockets of spiritual communities and friendships to happen, whenever and wherever that might be the case. Yeah. So we're just trying to set up conditions that people can use, that people can actively engage with. I have another quote for you, again from Sangharakshita, the founder of Triratna, our community. And he gave a speech at one of at the opening of like a big Buddhist center in London. That was in the 70s, late 70s, I think. And he, I find it quite funny. So he's, so that center at the time was called Sukhavati. So that's what he's saying. So he's saying, well, Sukhavati, that Buddhist center, is not intended for that sort of thing, not a merely therapeutic meditation, not just a 5-minute meditation, so that having done it, one can go home and carry on with one's so-called normal life, exactly as before, having taken your therapeutic or medicinal dose of Buddhism just to keep you going on in the same old way. And then he goes on to say, so Sukhavati, we hope, will serve a more noble function than that, a more radical, I might even say a more revolutionary function than that. Just keeping people going, giving them their sort of meditational vitamins, so that they can stagger along on the path of worldliness for a few more days or a few more weeks. Sukhavati, as you have already heard from no less than a person than the lips of the chairman of the center, is intended to be nothing less than the nucleus of a new society. So at the time, the word new society was kind of around apparently in the 70s. So he's sort of using that almost ironically and trying to give it new meaning. And what he means by that is what I've just described. Yeah, it's again the vision of what we're trying to do here is something where, if we're lucky, if we try our best, each individually, something of that glimpse, of that core of friendship, of community can shine through. Yeah, that is really what Buddhism is trying to do. Is trying to establish through individual responsibility, allow people to enter into relationships with one another, which hopefully will have an impact on the world. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.